Start with introductions. Jim Engel, I'm the Vice Chair at GRTC this year, and go around the room. Let everybody introduce yourselves. I'm with Chesterfield.
Bonnie Ashley, General Counsel.
Ellen Robertson, City of Richmond.
Sharon Ebert, City of Richmond.
Dave Anderson, Chesterfield.
Barb Smith, Chesterfield.
Dan Schmidt, Henrico County.
Nicole Jones, City of Richmond.
Terrell Hughes, Henrico County.
Adrian Torres, GRTC.
Bill Adams, GRTC.
Hand them out to y'all. Go ahead and just close it.
Tommy Thompson, GRTC.
Right, where we try you.
Sharika Ruffin, RideFinders.
Yeah.
Stephanie Power, our Virginia of Richmond.
Richard Fox, GRTC. Daniel Wagner, City of Richmond.
Elizabeth Smith, GRTC.
Gamble, GRTC. Daniel Mercado, GRTC.
Monica Carter, GRTC.
Tony Burke, recommend GRTC. Martin,
Johnson's Road, GRTC.
That's GRTC.
Elton Rose, retired.
GRTC. David, GRTC. Dexter, GRTC.
James Witt, GRTC.
All right, thank you, everybody. Do we have, I know we didn't have any public comments as of last night. Any public comments? Anybody here from the public that wants to speak? All right. Can get a motion to approve the minutes from March 18th.
So,
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Consent agenda. Dexter. Anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? No? All right. Get a motion to approve the consent.
To approve.
Second.
All in favor? All right. All right, operational updates. Kevin.
Morning, everybody. I'll be providing the operations performance report for the month of March. So beginning with our transportation department, I want to highlight that we ended the month of March with 322 full-time operators. We did have a slight decrease from the month before, but we're still outperforming our staffing numbers from the year prior. And we did have 15 trainees that will soon graduate to the branch. Our market transit staffing has remained pretty consistent as well. Despite a slight decrease, we also have 8 trainees that will soon be graduating as well. Pause for a second.
He read the statement.
Okay. All right, so highlighting our paratransit and care service, I wanted to point out a few things here. We currently have 4,864 active riders in our paratransit system. And as you guys can see, that has translated into high ridership within our paratransit service. Started with about 20,000 riders in January, and we wrapped up the month of March with 24,000 riders in our paratransit service. And our on-time performance has rebounded as well. We finished the month of March with 89%. Jumping over to safety and security, highlighting our customer service statistics. So we had 179 complaints received for our fixed route service. About a fourth of those were valid complaints. We'll be looking at our passenger category. This upcoming month, we did see an increase in that number, especially at nighttime with our evening operations, just due to low visibility at some bus stops. And we had a lot of new operators that are unfamiliar with some of these routes. So we're going to be looking at that category. Working on the campaign to help out operators. With our paratransit service, we had 26 complaints. 38% of those were valid. We're working with our drive team members to address that, specifically scheduling. And so, Ryan, new GM will be taking a look at that. And then with microtransit, we did have 3 complaints that were valid. Unfortunately, those were specifically to 1 or 2 operators that we have since retrained. And we had 17 total accommodations across our entire system. Looking at our vehicle operations safety, we had 36 incidents reported on our fixed route, a slight reduction from the prior month. About only 1/3 of those were actually classified as preventable. Our paratransit did see an increase in incidents, 15, which is 7 more than the last month. And our RiDrive team members are working diligently with their new staff to make sure next month that we address those. And then our market transit, we have. So looking at public safety, our numbers are pretty consistent from the month before. We had 22 total incidents reported at our downtown transfer station. Only less than a fifth of those, only 4 actually required police intervention. For the second consecutive month, we are happy to report we had no physical assaults at DTS. And we're also seeing our increase in medical response at the DTS just due to the availability of our officers at the DTS. We also started last month patrolling our Willow Lawn location and also our pull stations. So we did see 7 incidents reported throughout the system, with a combination of various things, verbal incidents, and unfortunately we did have some spitting incidents with our operators that we're keeping an eye on as well. And we're happy to report that our Public Safety Ambassador program will be built up as of Sunday, March 30th. Just to recap what our Public Safety Ambassadors will be doing. So they'll be writing the system to help riders, staff, specifically de-escalating situations, rendering aid, offering navigation help, reporting hazards, and just providing support and a presence out there in the system. They'll also be helping with our CCTV video monitoring, just to help our transportation supervisors, our safety officers, and our operators with just a proactive approach with reviewing video. And so I wanted to provide some highlights that we got just from the about 2-3 weeks that they've been live. So we did have one PSA, a public safety ambassador, that was reviewing CCTV, and they were able to actually help our dispatchers with live details, with live video review of an ongoing fight that was happening outside the bus. So as you guys can imagine, our supervisors and our control center are juggling many things, so having that extra support definitely helped with getting support to that operator. We had a PSA that stayed on board a bus, rode a bus with an operator all the way through once the bus got crowded, after there was reports of a shooting in the area of one of our bus routes. And so the PSA didn't want to leave the operator in that situation with an overcrowded bus without support. We also had a PSA respond to an unresponsive passenger on a bus. They were ready to render first aid and provide support. They were able to stay in communication with dispatch and some of our public safety officers. But luckily, the bus was able to pull in to our downtown transfer station when first responders arrived. But just having them there in communication and ready to assist was something that we were able to highlight. And then lastly, it's a great story of one of our PSAs saw a group of young girls at the downtown transfer station who needed help getting home. And so the ride was going to take over an hour, but the PSA decided to ride with them all the way until they got home. And this just shows the impact already that just not our public safety ambassadors have, but also our officers.
And this is just since the launch.
This is just since March 6th. Wrapping up with our fleet of facilities maintenance, we had 46 completed work orders, still meeting our goal of 80% with our facilities upkeep. With maintenance, we're wrapping up our construction project in the back of our lot with our EV chargers for our market transit vans, which will soon be ready to go. With our fleet maintenance, we're continuing to meet our 80% goal. On preventative maintenance, highlighting that we had 100% completion for our fixed route. We're currently moving staff. Last but not least, our Arctic buses have finally arrived. We have our first 2 buses that arrived earlier this month, and we are expecting the last 2 buses to arrive by the end of next week. We'll soon be beginning training and more details to come in the official launch of the buses. Questions?
Sure. You started by talking about some of the complaints were around visibility. Can anyone share sort of how we respond to that? Because visibility hits more than just complaints. It hits on safety. It hits on a lot of things that can be worse. I immediately go to lighting and things like that. What are being thought through as sensible solutions to that? Because that sounds like a big one.
Yeah, I think we're working with our capital team on improvements in some of these bus stops with the lighting. Improving. Some of them don't have lights at all, and so some of it's just shrubs as well. So we have our we have a team that goes out there cleaning a lot of our shelters and a lot of bus stops.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kevin. Ridership. Dr. Frank.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, once again, I have the privilege of sharing with you a high-level overview of the ridership performance for the third quarter of FY 2025. So today we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about fixed route, or ridership on our fixed route, microtransit, and paratransit. So starting with the fixed route. Let's kind of orient ourselves a little bit on this slide. So the purple bars represent inflation for fiscal year, the third quarter of FY24, and the green ones show the FY25, and you're going to see this for both for this side and then the subsequent slide. So looking at the and on this slide here, what we've done is to separate the sort of ridership into local BRT and then express, because those are the 3 most that constitute our fixed route. So looking at the local fixed routes for the third quarter of FY25 compared to that of FY24, we see an increase of 3%. The BRT saw an increase of 5%, and then the express saw a decrease of 22%. which is, that is a trend that we have been seeing on the express route. And, commuter modes are ones that are most hit, they were the ones that were most hit when we had COVID. So they are still struggling to recover. And this is a trend that we see across the nation. Right, still on the fixed routes, what we're looking here is the average daily ridership. Again, like I said, purple showing the FY24 information and green showing the FY25. But also paying attention to the local GRT and then the express. But lastly, you can see that on this slide, we have separated the data into weekday, Saturday, and Sunday, just to give you a quick idea of how the third quarter comparison fares. So starting with the local fixed route for the weekday, FY25 versus the third quarter of FY24, we see an increase of 3% for the weekday. Saturday saw 11% increase, and Sunday saw 5% increase. For the BRT, weekday we're seeing an increase of 6%. Saturday is 16, then Sunday is 3. But the express service that only runs during the weekday, so that is what that looks like, and we have a decrease of 21%. All right, let's jump into micro transit. As we all know, we currently have 5 zones running now. So to the left of the slide, you will see the total ridership for microtransit for the third quarter, both FY24 and 25. And then to the right side, it's the average daily ridership. All right, so just a little bit of information here. Ashland, Cloverdale, and Carlton launched in March of 2020. So we don't have enough data to do the quarter. All right, but I think Samson also launched in July of 2024. But Azalea launched November of 2023. So that's why we have at this point that is the only zone that we have enough information to run it quarter to quarter comparison for. So looking at the Azalea total ridership and running that quarter by quarter comparison, we see a 45% increase in total. And on the average daily ridership side, we see an increase of 21%. Moving on to paratransit, just to state that as at the time that we were putting this data together, we did not have information for the care on demand. So that's why you don't see any data for that. But for care and care class, doing that quarter-over-quarter comparison, we see an 8.5% increase for total ridership. And we also see an 8.3% increase in the average daily ridership. Wanted to share with you all a ridership highlight. So I want to talk a little bit about all spotlight a remarkable milestone in the history of GRTC. So for FY25, months of August, September, and October, each recorded ridership figures surpassing 1 million ridership. And this is the first time that this is happening in the history of GRTC. So I wanted to bring this to the attention of board and the staff here, but also wanted to also share a little bit. So usually when we come out here, I talk about ridership numbers, but typically when you see stuff like this, we're saying, one can interpret this as a sign of growing demand in the transit system, which is true. But also, if you take that perspective, what we've also done is that we have looked a more comprehensive understanding of what public transportation's impact on our communities are. Sorry. But when we consider our ridership solely as numbers or solely as statistics, we miss the broader narrative that underscores GRTC's vital role in our community. Our services are not just numbers, but they serve as a lifeline, opening doors to crucial opportunities for many of our residents within the various communities that we serve. So I think that, by bridging gaps to employment, education, healthcare, we empower, vulnerable populations, and we also enhance their quality of life. Each trip that these individuals take that we record here reflect a step towards progress, highlighting the transformative power of GRTC services. So, as the Director of Finance, watching this upward trend, in the ridership numbers, I think I am optimistic about the direction that we are currently going, and with the investment that we make into the transit. I just want to take this chance to thank the board for their support, and then also thank the leadership for the direction that they provide to us. But lastly, I also want to thank my data manager here, Elizabeth, who does a great job with her team analyzing these numbers for her. So that is pretty much something that I just wanted to share, so that we don't continue to look at these ridership as just numbers, but more of an impact in our community. Thank you.
The express numbers, you said year over year, but I don't see a monthly trend line. Is that showing a trend, or is that just we're seeing a summary of a 20% reduction? Can you share a little bit about whether that's a trend or?
It is a trend. Express ridership is pretty much recent. It's a trend that we see nationwide. The commuter services, they were the most hit when COVID happened. The reason being that these are white riders on express services are usually white-collar job professionals who make enough money. We call them the choice riders. They have cars, they can choose to ride or not. But remember, when COVID hit, now you have the work from home option. Take GRTC here. We do three days here and 2 days home. So if I was riding 5 times a week, now I'm back to riding it three times. That is what is affecting what we're seeing on express service.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. I developed Laura Toothman, Central Transit Infrastructure and Project Updates.
Mr. Chairman of the board, it's my pleasure to give you all an update on our development projects. While we're getting back on, I can just let you know about the projects that we have going on. I'll be telling you a little bit about our North-South BRT project, our North-South BRT transit-oriented development, our BRT Western Extension, the transfer center in the West End, pole station modifications, the soon-to-begin demo of 325 East Belt Boulevard, our permanent downtown transfer station study and TOD. And then after all of that, I'll be telling you a lot more about our essential transit infrastructure, our ETI program, which we're very excited to have well underway at this point. Our North-South BRT project is currently about halfway through our NEPA process. We are in the early stages of our second phase of public engagement. So far, we've had three pop-ups, one on the north side, one downtown, and one on the south side. We've also had one public meeting at Main Street Station and a virtual public meeting, all of which were well attended, and we got a lot of good feedback from the public about those. We are just about to have a meeting to discuss historic resources in the corridor for the North-South BRT, and we are on schedule with our process for that. North-South BRT transit-oriented development process is about to get underway. We are going to have a meeting with the project team in mid-May. We're really looking forward to that. Post-Western Extension is also going really well. We are on track to finish our NEPA process later this summer. We will be having our second round of public engagement in mid-May. We'll be meeting at the Living Mill Library as we did the first round. And we are still on target for finishing up our process and our design process to begin construction toward the end of this decade. We're also working with Henrico County right now on the transfer center at Parham and Brock, and have worked through some design issues with our design consultant to minimize noise impacts to a few residential areas that are directly planned south or pictured south of the area. And also to help streamline our traffic into and out of the area of the transfer center site. All station modifications are complete as of earlier this week. We did modifications to all of the stations on the street, and we just wrapped up modifications to our training platform at the Gaskins Road parking lot. We did have one incident after the modifications were completed to the westbound Government Center station. We had a collision. It was not one of our vehicles. It was a private citizen. So we have that one blocked off because we've had some preliminary engineering work done to assess it. We will expect that work to be done mid to late summer. As I mentioned earlier, demolition of 325 East Belt Boulevard. We're working through some permitting issues with the city right now. And right now we expect that work, the demolition work itself, to begin at the end of this month. Our asbestos remediation is complete. We're happy to report. Then our permanent downtown transfer center. We will be doing the transit-oriented development with that side by side with the TOD for the North-South BRT. We have completed the scope of work for the NEPA work required for this project, and that is in procurement right now. And for our ETI, we'll just go with this for now. We've been making great strides with ETI. We're really happy with our progress so far. Overall, the goal for this project was to improve our accessibility at our bus stops, to increase the number of amenities at the bus stops across all 3 jurisdictions. And we've been working with Wendell and Kinley Horn to get this plan going. Our focus areas, as I mentioned, are ADA compliance, installing amenities, and then also an effective project planning process so that moving forward, we can continue this momentum. Kinley Horn has been leading up our ADA compliance evaluation. I'm happy to report that as of this month, they have completed their ADA evaluation of our entire fixed route system, every stop. And they are in the process right now of updating our signage and other areas to let us know where we have things that we need to fix. So that should be, we should be getting that information pretty quickly. And we'll begin working on ongoing maintenance for that. While we're waiting for this to finish loading, I'm happy to report that for the city of Richmond, so far, we've installed 41 benches and shelters. And we have another 3 benches and 7 shelters that are ready for installation. We also currently have 10 shelter installation plan sets in review with the city of Richmond, and we just submitted another 14 sets of plans for shelter installation this week. In Henrico County, we have installed 4 benches and 8 shelters. We have 1 bench and 2 shelters ready to install, and we've sent out work orders to our construction partner for that. And then we have 7 plans for shelters that are currently under review. Some of these shelters are going to require an extra step because they're in VDOT right of way, so we're working with our consultants on the VDOT land use permit right now. We did just receive a proposal from our consultants to help us with extra survey that's required for right-of-way acquisition and for the land use permit. So we'll be getting that work underway pretty soon. In Chesterfield County, so far we have 8 benches that have been installed and 15 shelter installations. We've got 1 bench and 3 shelters that are ready to be installed. And we're currently working with the county on creation of some concrete pads for future amenities installation. And we're confirming the next round of plans and placing a shelter order so that we'll be ready to go when they arrive. And here's a map to show you where our installations have been completed throughout our service area. And then these are the ones that are in progress right now. And the last part of the work that that Wendell and Kinley Horn are doing for us is helping us come up with a funding and planning strategy so that we can continue this momentum as we move forward. They're helping us to prioritize our installations and to identify areas where we're going to need funding, and then also to align our designs with budget opportunities. So as I mentioned earlier, we have just recently completed the system-wide survey of all of our stops. And we've got a clear understanding of what's going to be required for right-of-way acquisition and where we need to do the surveys that I mentioned just a little while ago. Next up, we're going to complete the installations that we have planned or that are in progress. And we've already begun ordering additional shelters. The lead time on those is about 26 weeks. So we've got a little while, but we're trying to get into a process where we're installing and ordering and receiving as we need them.
Quick follow-up to my earlier question about visibility. I saw the definition of amenities, benches, shelters, trash cans, and pad. I think that's what I saw. Where does lighting fit into all that? Because that seems critical, and it seems like the most expensive of those elements. How does that factor in? Because I think there's a lot of bang for the buck in terms of safety and visibility and all good things for GRTC, but it's a big cost.
We're working with the localities to get data on lighting. We're able to, I think every locality has a GIS shapefile, shows where their streetlights are. So we're using that to get at least a basic understanding of which areas might need more light. We also have, we're in the process of ordering some solar lights for, I believe, 32 bus stops. And those lights will go in areas where there isn't adequate street lighting. And our essential transit infrastructure manager is working with our consultants to identify those areas and with the localities.
Do we have any conversations going on with Dominion about potential needs they have for community involvement, solar, activating some of their alternative energy things where there might be a synergy where they actually pay for some of this installation?
We haven't, but that's a great idea. Thank you. I'll be sure to share that with our ETI manager.
And all the shelters will have lights in them as well.
The word shelter means lighting will be in it, right? So if there is shelter, it's the ones that don't have that. It might just be pads or benches.
And we are testing. We have 52, I think, to do the solar light testing just to see how it works and then deploy more of those if it works out.
Dominion loves to see their logos, so that would be kind of big play.
We do.
Other questions? I'm asking, are there other questions?
A few, Mr. Chair. Did you say that there's lighting in, as part of the design in every shelter?
Every shelter has solar light.
Second question is, can we get a list of those installations and future installations of the shelters? Sorted by by magisterial area, of course, jurisdiction.
I'm with dates. That was gonna be my question. We keep saying that it's coming in the future, coming in the future. We're getting questions. I need to be able to start giving more details other than it's coming in the future.
Simple list of those. I think you had it broken into done and then planned. So that would be great. And then I'm sorry to do this to you, Dex, but my other question is on the last slide deck. It's on the Western transfer station. We can pull that slide back up, the one that's on Perham and Broad. While he's bringing that up, do we have a design for that yet? Or what's the timeline for a design for the Western transfer station? Layout, inbound, outbound, where, you know, turnaround. Is there a design yet? Or is there, what's the timeline to have a design for it? Charlie, you might even know the answer to that.
Still, well, it's still in preliminary form.
So no design yet?
Not one that we want to show you.
That's fine, which is fine. That's a fine answer. I guess my question really refers to, do we anticipate, as a transfer station, I don't anticipate as much, but because it's a BRT stop and it will become the westernmost access point, what kind of parking do we anticipate the need? No, I'll be honest with you, I have concerns because right now Libby Mill is the westernmost and parking has been a fiasco there for years, as we all know. They park in Willow Lawn, which we're lucky to have a mall there to have accessibility. They park on Bird, they park on Fitzhugh, they park in the mall. I guess my question is, when the design comes to fruition, what is our standard there with regard to parking? Because I don't see the overflow possibility that we currently have at Libby Mill.
Yeah.
So before we build something really nice and cut a ribbon and say it's going to be amazing, is the first day going to have 95 people looking for parking on Perham and Broad? And that would be my concern before we spend millions of dollars and build something like that.
Yeah, no, the site's a little tight for, it's not going to meet the full parking demand, I guess, to answer your question, just given the constraints of the site.
So I guess my first question on design was, well, how many parking spaces are designed for that, which I would anticipate the answer to be very little because of the need for bus turnaround. I have concerns of spending all three of our jurisdictional dollars building a beautiful facility there that people are going to not be able to use. Because quite frankly, I'll have to drive to the next stop to find out where. I'll have to drive to, I think I saw it on there, Wistar, Glenside, somewhere else. And I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna go to Glenside. I'm gonna park in the Mission Barbecue parking lot and I'm gonna hop on the bus there. And then I'm gonna have businesses like Glenside and Broad yelling at me that people are parking in their lots to try to catch the bus. So before we continue down the road, spending money and design, that is a problem for me. So just plan on it now. I think if I remember the date there is 2029, I think I saw on the slide deck. And we have 4 years. I would advocate not to spend Henrico's, Richmond's, Chesterfield's money building something there that's going to be a problem on day one with regard to parking if we don't have a parking plan. And if that means additional land acquisition from I don't know if that's a tropical smoothie right there on the corner. Is that what that is? Or if it's the other side or what, but I would advocate that we don't run for the end zone without the ball on that one. That'll be my 2 cents. Thank you. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair, to your point, how many park and ride locations do we have in the counties? Any?
Oh, absolutely. There's a huge one on the corner of Glenside and Staples.
Okay. Okay.
Not close to the street corridor, not walkable. There's an enormous one on Gaskins and Broad, not necessarily walkable to the Broad Street corridor, but certainly capable to be converted into a stop. There's a huge park and ride at Gaskins and Broad, Gaskins and 64. And there's a huge one at Staples Mill and Glenside. And, the key there is they have been used, quite frankly, for commuter parking and special services. They're not on the express line. And they're not walkable to the express line. The struggle for years, we've been looking for a place to do this at Will Long. We couldn't find it economically, multi-millions of dollars for the land. This parcel became available. It's a sweet location on Parham and Broad. I don't think it's big enough. And I personally do not think spending millions of dollars for there and then creating ourselves a remarkable parking problem with people parking all across Broad Street and walking across a 6-lane thoroughfare to get on a bus is a great idea.
So that there's a Parham Park and Ride as well, and the idea was there was a new route that goes to Parham, and there would be a local route that would connect to this to make it more of a transfer station, so individuals could park there.
That's over right on the corner of 64, right? So they would the ask is that you drive to the park and ride on 64. You take a shuttle, a type of service to this location, then transfer. If that's part of the plan, then let's discuss if that's part of the plan. That's another ask of a commuter. But I just want to make sure that we start discussing the fact that I would hate to, what does this plan cost? Somebody give me just a dart. If we do this perfectly and we build this transfer station, what is this?
It depends on what's built.
12 million, 15 million, I don't know, 25, 6, what's the cost of this? About. No one wants to.
It's not,
Less than 20.
Yeah, it's not
Less
as
than
high.
20.
Not
Less
as
than
high as
20.
you mentioned, yeah.
11 million bucks?
Go
I
with
don't know,
that.
could be 15, could be 9. Great. I got 30,000 people in that area, probably within a half a mile, that have nowhere to park to get on that bus that we're going to spend $10 million to put there. So I just want to be really careful about building a beautiful, shiny object that's really, really in a great location that nobody can use. And then I got PEDs walking across Broad Street and Parham Road in a 50-mile-an-hour zone, and I don't know where I'm going to park them. And they're going to be parking in neighborhoods, which are right there, right on the other side of Blankenship. I just want to avoid that problem before I spend, 8 figures of your money, Richmond money, Chesterfield money, and Rico money.
So Mr. Chair, so are you questioning whether or not we have enough routes and connectivity to acknowledge a transit operation that warrants a transfer station?
I think it absolutely warrants it. I think Parham and Broad is a perfect location. I know why this group of experts selected it. I just don't think that piece of parcel is big enough to do what we want to do, because I've seen the issue at Libby Mill. What has been the busiest pull station over the last 10 years? Busiest station, pull along. Why? On the end of the line. Everybody gets to it, parks, gets on it, takes it downtown, so don't have to fight traffic. It makes perfect sense. It's actually the whole point. The whole point is to remove vehicles off the road downtown and let people use public transportation. They did it. We built a beautiful stop. It's a perfect end zone. It's a perfect terminal. They got the mall, got restaurants, got amenities, got housing, residential, really close on Fitzhugh, Old Richmond. It's a really great spot, just like this is. But it brings with it every single day, I would dare say, because it's in my district, I would say it brings 300 cars. I don't know what the ridership is, but maybe more than 300 cars. And there is no parking spot that is owned by the public. They park in Federal Realty's property, which is great. That we're lucky that there's a Panera and there's the mall there, and they park there. And those business owners have been relatively, I would say, kind to allow it. Maybe they're generating business. Those businesses love it too. I mean, if I'm the Starbucks right there, I'm loving, you park right there all day long. But I'm afraid that's going to happen right there. We're just going to take that parking thing and move it there, and I don't think that's big enough.
And as you were discussing this, so what came to my mind was, and I won't make any other analogies than this, the metro in DC. When they talk about extensions and lines, the most important element of that is the conversion of people driving to it to getting on the train. So obviously they have all that, but there's a tremendous amount of attention to being paid to how do we get people to this point and where do they park? So it's the same type of thing on a different scale.
So Ellen, that's your question. I think it's a wonderful location, and I really think it's going to be utilized. Matter of fact, I think it's going to be utilized so much when you push it out to the Parham intersection. I think it's going to be utilized so much, I think we're going to have a problem, don't we?
So I guess the question I'm asking is, if parking, the whole motive is to increase transit. And if the demand for parking supersedes the need, the availability or the necessity for the consumer to have a transfer, then I guess it's the chicken and the egg thing. Are we building parking lots and, so when we locate a transfer, are we locating a transfer because the volume is to the degree that it supports the need for the transit? But if the accessibility to transit requires just as much parking spaces as or more, then I'm not sure that either the location is correct, or the demand has reached the peak that, and our network of feeding into it is sufficient enough.
The transfer piece for me is one. If you're using that as a transfer hub, much like the downtown one, I don't see the overabundant need for parking. If it's a transfer, but I think as a terminus, an end point, I think that's what you're going to get. Matter of fact, it's a piece of, I think, what we want. That people that put their car somewhere, get off the road, so that Broad Street, 64, downtown, as we fight to avoid parking downtown, right? We want people coming in on public transportation. And I think it's going to be very popular. I think as popular as Libby Mill is. I don't think any of us can argue Libby Mill is the most popular place to launch onto public transportation. It has been for years. Therefore, how are people doing that? They're not walking to Wall Lawn. Some are, but they're not walking to Wall Lawn. They're driving from the suburbs to Wall Lawn, parking their cars so they don't have to park or drive downtown.
And I think that's another thing, is the DNA of this is starting to change from necessity ridership to choice ridership. And if we're talking about people making a decision, conscious decision, something's going to have to be involved, which is convenience. And if they find themselves not fine, they're just going to say, well, that didn't work.
The other way is your point. I think there's a lot of folks that might live or in the downtown area or near West End that might be heading this way to work. That's fantastic. I don't see them bringing their car that way. I see them being able to walk to any station, hop on it, and take it now all the way out to Parham. They can work at Glenside, they can work at the Westin, they can work at the old Genworth facility, which we know is going to be rejuvenated. They can be taking the line the other way going to work, which is fantastic. That's what we want. Not going to increase cars. I'm afraid of the folks out in this area that are going to look at this as the new Libby Mill. And they might not use that. Quite frankly, if I wanted to do that, I would drive to Glenside and I'd park in the Mission Barbecue lot, leave my car right there next to the Burger King, hop on this. That's what I would do. But again, now we are promoting and purposefully putting our cars, our folks, on private property, which is not the goal. I just want to, I'm not saying end the project. I'm saying be cautious. Don't build a beautiful project without knowing the impact it's going to have on parking. And I see a parking problem on Broad and Parham, my opinion. And I love the idea somebody brought up, who was it asked about where the parking lots are? Did you ask that? Somebody, Sharon asked that? And those are big pieces of parcel property already that I think you own. Who owns those parking lots? You see on them?
EDOT owns
them. Those are huge parcels. Gassing's a little far. But Parham and Glenside are pretty close. I would just ask people smarter than me to consider utilizing some of those properties. If it's the connector that you talked about, or if it's simply putting the turnaround and the transfer station there, it's fine. But I guess I would ask as a user, I would say, why would we not just put the transfer station on that parking lot? I don't know. Smarter people than me, but I just wanted to bring this slide back up because I have a fear that we're going to build something really, really, really nice, cut a ribbon, and the first day there's going to be people parking all across Broad Street.
All right, I think your concern has been heard, so we'll continue to have conversation. Anybody else with any questions? Thank you. Financial update from February.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This is slide 42 in the board package. I'm going to talk from slide 43, which is the highlights. Okay. So I'm reporting upon for the 8 months ending February 28, 2025. So what we're seeing here on the revenue side, we're favorable to budget $4.3 million. That's a little bit of a change from the prior briefing year to date through January. Well, you see the increase in the favorable performances on the federal funds line, which is now $5.744 million, which is due to the federal funds for qualifying basis. So in the month, as you have heard me brief in the prior 7 months, paratransit expenditures have been significantly higher. Paratransit, there is a component from the 5307 Flex, which basically covers about the month of July and about 3/4 of the month of August. So we're utilizing 80% of the actual expenditure for ARPA, which was about $3,007,000 that we utilized during the month of February's closing, which brought the favorable variance up that much. We have a remaining balance of just a little bit under dollars in ARPA, which is significant encumbrances for the ERP system, but just being cognizant of and this favorable federal funds is offsetting the timing of grant funded projects. You saw that already pretty much in-depth detailed projects. As you can appreciate, when we put the fiscal 25 budget together, we were operating one set of assumptions about regards to timeline. And as you can see, as you can appreciate these projects, things happen. There's external forces, and we're a little bit off of what our assumed timeline in 25 is. No big deal. It's we're still executing on that, but this does impact, as we assume that, because these are funded, federal and GRT funds, about 28% on the Fed, 68% on the state, and the remaining 4% local contributions. Those do come out of effect. So that's where you see the favorable, unfavorable revenues and favorable expenditures. So also here we have a favorable local share match of $871,000, and that's due to we do not technically budget the local operating revenue. We're pulling this off of this is over deferred capital revenue contributions that are on our balance sheet. So we did not contemplate that in the 24. So this is what's basically trying to share and offset that. We also do have slightly favorable directly generated funds of $84,000 at the last board meeting. I did briefly said that we did have some good new wins on the advertising revenue. So that, as you recall, last month we were a little slightly unfavorable here. We picked it up, so we're favorable. This is basically, we're still a little bit below on the advertising revenues, but it came up significantly from where we were in the prior month, and slightly unfair, about $2.5 million on the state funds, and this is due to the timelines on the projects.
How did we come up? Advertising came up.
The marketing department procured revenues for advertising, $100,000 that recognized through the pipeline.
We're being more proactive with the advertising program now that we're back up and running, so you're making some good headway.
Going down to the operating expense side of the now we're favorable about $2.2 million on an operating budget of $59.5 million. This is kind of where we were. We're kind of around that amount. So that right now it's primarily being driven by favorable services. This is basically $3.7 million. That's the
consultancies associated with a lot of these projects. And this is being, there's slightly favorable labor. It's about $200,000, $191,000, and that primarily is favorable G&A labor offset by, there's also some favorable maintenance labor, but this is offsetting the operators. What is driving this is vehicle operations labor is unfavorable, about $572,000, and this is being driven by operator training wages and benefits, which to the tune of about $620,000, which is also utilized and covered by. So we're about a push, the data, or the majority of the unfavorable is the training wages, and then a little bit of slightly elevated overtime. We're a little bit below headcount on the operators, but as Kevin reported, we have folks in the training classes and so forth. So we were also here recently due to pricing of goods. Materials and supplies are unfair, about $408,000. That's just the cost of parts and increased demand due to the increased service routes. We were taking a look into that. We have a joint finance and procurement to look into there, see what some of the drivers, see if we can do things more efficiently to save some more money there. And we also still continue to have the purchase services for the Care and Care Plus is running about $868,000 higher than budgeted in fiscal 25, and that's driven by demand. As you can appreciate, we also have route extensions as we extend routes, required federally 3/4 mile radius from the route to provide Care and Care Plus. So we've increased our footprint so that it's gone up, as well as the actual number of rides. So at this point, because of pulling in the ARPA money, there is a current surplus of $8.5 million, as opposed to we talked about the finance committee. We do have operating reserves, so basically, money. So that's the 7 months, the 8 months through February 28th, in a nutshell, if there's any specific
Questions?
I'm sorry, Chair. I thought ARPA funds had to be expended and you're going to move them into the reserve by moving them into the reserve.
No, they were ARPA funds are reimbursement of actual expenses. So expenses for care.
Gotcha.
So what's the budget dates again? Conversations, voting.
Fiscal 26 budget process. So today, DRPT should be, they haven't, but will be releasing what the final grant approvals are. So we have the proposed budget book put together. We're waiting to see what the final numbers for the state operating contribution, as well as the grant projects. We're going to update that. And then our goal is to circulate this budget book by the end of this week. We approve it and send it out by Friday. Members of the board, the entire members of the board. Upcoming on Thursday, May 8th at 3 p.m., we have our scheduled finance committee meeting. We're going to utilize that as our budget workshop. We will go through the budget book. We'll talk about all the line assumptions, invite everybody there to come and ask us questions so that our next board meeting is May
20th.
So that we can be prepared to discuss the budget.
Question?
Yesterday, the Central Virginia Transportation Authority Technical Advisory Committee met, and on their agenda was the Regional Public Transportation Plan. That's required to be developed annually. It was the FY26 plan, and that's developed annually between GRTC and cooperation with the TPO. So it's been through the TPO TAC, and the TPO itself was running through CVTA TAC for review. And an issue was brought up suggesting that some monies be shifted out of the reserve into capital match. So about 700,000 being shifted out of what's being held in reserve for CVTA transit money in this budget into capital match. And my understanding is shifting the funds would address system-wide capital matching, that benefits the GRT system as a whole. The TAC went on to recommend approval of the Regional Public Transportation Plan as is, without that change, because I felt it was more appropriate to have this discussion here and in conjunction with the budget. But I would ask that that item be considered and discussed prior to the workshop meeting so we fully understand it and can consider that.
And when is the workshop meeting?
Sorry, getting over a cold.
I mean, the only time that we could consider it and discuss it is probably now. I mean, when else will we be able to?
I didn't know whether staff might want to talk to the city offline and then bring the item to the workshop, but I don't understand all the details fully. It really just popped up yesterday.
Maybe the discussion point is the funds that we receive from CBTA that come in on a monthly basis. We prepare each year the annual regional public transportation plan based upon the assumptions of what the current funding is for the base operations and the main that's put in. We take out the planned capital match and the balance of it goes into reserve, which is dedicated towards key service expansion that we've identified in the 10-year plan. So what we have actually done in this year's fiscal 26 budget with regards to the CBTA funding for what is the base operations, we went back and we looked at what fiscal 2020's key operating expenses were versus what they are now in the adopted 25, and we noticed that the core components of the baseline, operator wages, your mechanic wages, your insurances, and your paratransit, those expenses have grown at about, let's call it 950 to 1,000 basis points. And if you look at the underlying operating contribution formula that was set by the CBT legislation, the operating contributions coming from the 3 municipalities over that same period have grown about 270 basis points. So theoretically, for every dollar of increase that we experience on our base operating, we're getting 30 cents. What is driving this? Just to put it in perspective, just a couple key little nuggets that you probably need to understand before you start making discussions about moving money around the reserves. So in 2020, the collective bargaining unit blended rate, our blended rate, our contribution, collective bargaining unit contracts, they have an annual merit increase on October 1st. So our fiscal calendar year is July through June. So the blended rate in fiscal year 20 was $23.54 an hour for operators at the top wage rate. Currently, for our proposed fiscal 26, that top wage rate is $33.77, which is a 143% increase over that period. Likewise, the pension contribution rate was about 11.88% in 2020. It's now 15.88%. So that's a 134% increase. The number of operators, we had 286 operators in fiscal year 20. We now have 355 that are budgeted in fiscal 26. That's a 24% increase. Revenue miles, we had 5.2 million revenue miles in fiscal year 20. We have 6.78 million revenue miles in 26. That's 130% increase. So it's saying depending upon what year, the compound annual growth rate from fiscal year 2020 through fiscal year 2025 for the operating contributions is a 2.7% increase per year. Baseline operation drivers during that period went up 8.66%. Our care and care plus are up about 12% over that period.
John,
as it relates to what just, thank you. I think you're just confusing me more about sharing.
So the 8 basic matches.
Yeah, what's the?
About 3 times more than what the funding has.
Mr. Chair, we've already had preliminary conversations with the city and we have a couple of versions of that. But when we find out today from CDB what the actual amounts we got, it's going to be less than what we requested, I'm sure, in terms of merit application. So the amount we asked to match will probably end up aligning anyway. But we will look at that once we get the actual number of what it is. I know you're asking to basically take money to match the local match for CBTA. I think that's what she's getting at.
So when you say you're talking to the city, can you tell me who that is?
Behind you.
The TAC member who spoke up yesterday in the CBTA meeting, Dorona.
So I would request, Mr. Chair, I need a work session before the work session. Because from what I'm looking at and what I'm being shown, Richmond has some real concerns as it relates to the share of revenue that we need to be much, much clearer on. And, these are big budgets. They got a lot of moving parts, lots of different funding sources. And I'm sure that we get a better breakdown of it in the Finance Committee meeting, which I had not, which was recently assigned to me. But I would ask just for the staff to, let's spend better time. It's difficult to try to get all of the information that we need across in this way, so.
So let's do this. We didn't have the finance meeting in April. Staff, if you get with the city, it's elected officials or board members, however y'all want to do, all 3. We still need a full for everybody though. So once y'all get together, then all of us need to be updated before May 8th. Does that sound okay to everybody? All right. So the city, so you got to hear from DPT or whoever.
CTV.
Whoever it is we're waiting to fill in. Then you'll schedule it. Do you want it just you or you want all 3 of y'all? How do you want to work it?
I love a crowd.
All right.
I'll settle.
Right.
But,
Yeah. But I'm just saying your 3 Richmond your 3 Richmond appointees.
And remember, that will be a public meeting.
Oh,
If
Lord.
all 3 are.
Okay. Well, then maybe 2 out of the 3 can do it. So, and then just send out a note or maybe call us or whatever be the case before May the 8th. So that when we get in here on May the 8th, we will at least be prepared. Anything else that has anything to do with any significant conversations? I would just say that. All right. Any other questions? Thank you. All right. CEO report.
So mine will be quick this morning. I have our employee of the month for April. You all heard Frank reference his data manager. She is one of our employee of the month employees. That is Elizabeth. Sitting behind the pillar hiding. Stand up, Elizabeth. Next up is one of our transportation supervisors, Manny Yamba. And then third is one of our IT technicians, and Romeo. So these are our 3 employees. We appreciate all that they do to help us succeed here at GRTC, and we want to thank them. And we'll have your certificate after the meeting. So thank you.
That's it. All right, I've got a statement that I want to read. It went away. For the sake of anybody in the room or was watching online, and I wanted to read this at the beginning of the meeting, but Vice Chair jumped. Y'all try to, let me get here. All right, I know you want to, I know, maybe that's how y'all do it in Chesterfield, but let Chair get here. Unless I tell Cheryl I ain't gonna be here, then y'all give me a few minutes. While the budget has not formally been adopted for FY 2026, current projections show that we will meet the funding needs to continue zero fail service through the next fiscal year. Just want to go on record and say that. We haven't met, and that's all I've been seeing in the news is fail free. And it's almost a little agitating being on the board, and we haven't even talked about it. So I don't even know where this, well, let me just stop there. All right. We need to go into executive session. I move that the GRTC Board of Directors hold a closed meeting pursuant to section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the discussion and consideration of the performance and compensation of the Chief Executive Officer of Greater Richmond Transit Company.
We need a vote on that.
Need a motion, I need a.
So moved.
Move and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so I need everybody going but the board. And our attorney.
We all understand it by
certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public matters lawfully exempt from open meeting requirements by Virginia law, where required in the closed meeting to which this certifying resolution applies, and only such public business matters as identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and considered by the board. So you want me to go ahead and call the names? All right, witness the following vote. Tyrone Nelson, aye. Jim Ingle.
Aye.
Barbara Smith.
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Dan Smith. Aye. Sharon Ebert.
Aye.
Ellen Robinson. Nicole Jones.
Aye.
All right, that's it? We good? All right, any other business? All right, call this meeting adjourned.
Hey, let me get some church food.